No. Okay, today is Friday, March 10th, and this is the Indiana Arts Commission quarterly business meeting here at the Arts Federation. And I am very pleased and honored to welcome our mayor for the city of Lafayette, Mayor Tony Rosworski. Tony has been our mayor for 20 years.
Yeah.
Getting ready hopefully for another term coming up. So the mayor would like to say a few words.
Thank you. I want to just squeeze through here. I feel kind of funny standing up there talking to you. Also, well, good morning, everybody. Thank you. As Alberta said, I've been blessed. It's a little bit about me to be the mayor for the past 20 years. Before that, I'm a retired police captain with the Lafayette Police Department. So if you kind of add that up, that's about 40 years. I signed on with the police department when I was 22. I will be 63 in June. So I've been going to the same building to work for over 40 years. So, but I love this community, and we certainly very, very much appreciate what your board does, what the Indiana Arts Commission does for our community. We know that arts and culture are an important part of economic development. They're an important part of quality of place and all the things that we do for quality of life initiatives. And we know that the arts play a big role in that. And we know that we as a local community cannot do that on our own without help from organizations like yourself. I am just so blessed to be part of a community that has great people working together, like at TAF, like at the Art Museum, things like the Civic Theater, all the different types of arts that come into play to creating that, like I said, that quality of life that we want. So that's very important, but there is an economic factor to it, and we all know that, right? We're in a global crunch for attracting talent to our community, just like everybody, to fill those jobs. Believe it or not, in Tippecanoe County, we have 7,000 open positions right now. And just recently, GE announced that Air India is buying 800 LEAP engines from them. We make the LEAP engine here in Lafayette. So billions and billions of dollars of back order. So we need a lot more. We need a lot more people. And we know that having different types of arts, different types of opportunities for people really does make a difference in how your community is viewed, not only for attracting people, but when businesses are making a decision to move here and open up or expand here, those types of things all come into play. And so we know over the years, you have all been very helpful in promoting those programs and the things that we do here. And like I said, I wish the sun was shining a little bit. I know you got out last night a little bit, and I hope maybe again today some. I'm not complaining. Snow is very expensive, and we have not had snow. I have 4 children and 8 grandchildren, and none of my grandchildren are like, Papa, why do you not like snow? I said, well, just enough for you guys to sled, but not too much snow. So we're not going to complain. But again, I hope you have a wonderful day here. Again, just a sincere, heartfelt thank you for what you do. We appreciate it and value it here in Greater Lafayette, not only in Lafayette, but West Lafayette, Greater Lafayette community. We really do value what you do, and we look forward to continuing our relationship. Thank you.
Thank you. And we also are blessed to be here this morning at the Arts Federation. I should say the fairly newly remodeled Arts Federation. And Tisha, you were quick.
I did.
Tisha is going to say a few words. And just in case you don't know, the Arts Federation is our regional partner for Region 4. So thank you, Tisha, for all you do.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Before the mayor leaves, I did just want to really bring attention to his support of the arts. Not only the building that we're in, the city was a lead contributor to the renovation. He also was the lead funder for our mural program, our mural festival that we had, which really kicked it off in North Central Indiana. So thank you so much, Mayor.
I'm on my way to the fire department. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. But yeah, he has really set the tone for it. And after really proving ourselves with success behind some of the projects, he continues to be an avid supporter. Sorry, the elevator just opened and no one's coming out.
It's Stan.
Sorry, it's an older building, so sometimes it scares me.
Yeah.
So again, welcome. This is the Arts Federation. We recently rebranded. We were formerly the Tippecanoe Arts Federation. But again, because we've been a regional partner since 1997, we thought that it was important that we be reflective of the entire region that we serve and that everyone feel included. And we've been really targeting the area. Oh, and I'm sorry, behind you, as he's trying to leave, David Hunke, he is the president of the Arts Federation. Thank you for being here, sir. So David works for the city. So he'll be following the mayor for the rest of the day. You know, again, we're really honored to have you here because I know you only travel once a quarter, well, 4 times each year. And so we're lucky to have you. I did want to quickly introduce my team because this doesn't happen all by itself. So I think some of you have already met Audrey. She is our operations and development officer, and she also helped set everything up, and she's super techie and all of that, and just an all-around wonderful person. Yeah, and then Laura Sanz, this is her first week. She is overseeing our programs and our marketing. So they are part of Team TAF, and so we have a really big staff, 3 of us, and we may or may not be adding a 4th. So you guys probably want a 4th. Maybe. Okay. Thank you. So anyway, heard, right? But a little bit about the Arts Federation. Outside of being a regional arts partner, we are also a provider of programs and services. So we do the grants making, technical assistance, information, and referral services. We are the hub of the arts. So if you're looking for the free Wi-Fi code, it's capital ART, capital HUB at 638. Or is there an at? There's, okay, at 638. So that's our address. So Art Hub at 638. And then in terms of the programs that we do, we have an after-school arts program. It's offered at no cost to our young people. We do pay all of our instructors, of course, because that's a big part of what we do as advocates for our artists to get paid for their talents. And because we're an arts council, we're able to offer really everything under the arts umbrella. So we do traditional painting and drawing. My favorite class that we've ever done was our DJ class, which we have a coffin. So it's 2 turntables and a microphone, and actually teach kids how to match beats. That's always been, again, my heart. So Laura, if you could bring that back, I'd be super happy. Yeah. So we do focus primarily on young people, especially those that don't have the financial resources to take private lessons. When I first came here 15 years ago, I did a general assessment. And so we are very fortunate to have a lot of those offerings, but there was definitely a deficiency in areas where we could provide equal access to everyone. In addition to that, I mentioned we have our mural program. It's called Wabash Walls. We have over 100 murals across the region. It did start here in Tippecanoe County as actually an effort from Mayor Roswarski, who was, unfortunately, the city passed an unpopular ordinance to penalize building owners that had been tagged. If they didn't cover it up, they were, again, fined. So the mayor asked us if we could step in and potentially do something positive. So we started the Alley Art, and then it has since grown to the program that it is today with several international artists and top artists from around the world. So very fortunate to have that. We do a visiting artist program. So again, taking resources that we have here in Tippecanoe County to our underserved counties. We do serve 14, and 92% of our counties are deemed underserved by isolated geography or socio economy. And then finally, we have our Artreach instrument lending library. And essentially, it's a program where for every 1 instrument that's donated from the community, we can repair that one, but we can also purchase a brand new one. And for students that are enrolled in band or orchestra, and also qualify for free and reduced school lunch. They can borrow an instrument for up to 7 years or until they graduate from high school. So again, we're all about equity and really trying to level the playing field so that all of our young people, all of our communities have equal access to the arts. So very important for us. And then around you, we have our exhibition. It is Youth Art Month. So we have artwork from our 14 counties up. So it starts over here with the wee ones and goes around to our middle school there in the Wabash National Gallery. So our big fundraisers are the Taste of Tippecanoe, much like any other taste. And then coming up April 29th is our craft beer festival. It's called Tap for Tap and it happens at the top of the parking garage. Very fun, my favorite. And so if you'd like to join me, I'd be happy to have you as my guest. But again, thank you so much. Yeah.
Let them know that you have been invited to that conference.
Okay,
Because that's a big deal.
I haven't told my team. Thank you. Thank you. So Paige and I used to work here together, so we've known each other for quite a long time. So when we saw each other last night, I just felt like I should share. Plus, we're also a cultural district that's recognized by the state, so very happy to do that. And so I was recently invited to present at the Global Cultural District convening that's being held this year in Montreal. So I mentioned that on the group of presenters that I'll be with, I'm the only one from the US. My counterparts are from Singapore and Uganda. And so it's a little overwhelming that, you know, from Lafayette, Indiana, we've been asked to the table, but very, very proud to rep the Indiana brand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, what else is in this building?
Oh,
Sarah,
yeah,
please, if you would.
sorry.
We'll have a break and maybe folks can explore.
No, that would be great too. And because Audrey, you know, all of the codes to everything, we can get you into spaces. So up here, again, this is our reception hall, multi-purpose space. Those of you over here can see this over the top production area where we have 3 trusses. This one can hold the equivalent of a Ram truck. It's true, that's what they told me. And we partner with the Songwriters Association of Mid-North Indiana. So they've really designed all of these, and also over at Purdue, Elliott Hall of Music, they program, there's lights that go on here. So really a next level production venue for intimate performances. So we can fit about 200 people in here. And we've really enjoyed being able to do that. We also hosted On Ramp a couple of years ago, and that was a lot of fun in here. This is the first time I crashed my drone trying to do something inside. So it was good because it actually matched up with the portion of the training that they talk about insurance. Yeah, so it just really just happened that way. So downstairs we have 4 multi-purpose spaces. 3 of them are oriented directly to a specific discipline. So we have an art studio, we have a dance studio, and we also have a professional recording studio. So I do encourage you guys to check that out. The recording studio is, again, next level accomplishment. The recording studio designer, his name's Matt Paul. He's actually an Indiana native, but he has designed studios for artists like Bon Iver and Madonna and Christina Aguilera. And again, it's really cool that he did ours and that he is a Lafayette native. So very much appreciate that. We've also had some performances up here that have been recorded and Grammy nominated. So already since we've opened reopened just in time to be closed in 2020 for the pandemic. But 2018, 2019, we're under construction. And so for all of that to really happen at this time, it just, we feel very fortunate, but, you know, overwhelmed with happiness because we could have never anticipated the popularity or the really international recognition that the organization has had through the various programs and also the resources. So, yeah, happy to give a tour later.
Thank you, Tisha. As you can tell, the arts are alive and thriving here in Lafayette, and a lot of that is responsible to Tisha and the great software. So,
Renee, yeah.
Okay. Stephanie, I think you're up for roll call.
Alberta, I'll start with you.
Okay. Alberta Barker, Commission, Region 4.
Azizi Arrington Slocum.
Present here.
Yeah. Present. Raina Bradley,
Here representing District 3.
Ruth Ann Callan,
Jeffersonville District 1.
Dave Heist,
Here.
Craig Hall,
District 7 here.
Jake Oakman,
Here.
Sophia Soto. Here. Renee Thomas. Present. Ann Valentine,
Here.
we're on the phone, Chad Bolzer,
Present.
Walter Kanabi,
Here.
Lori McRobbie.
Here, phoning in from beautiful Salt Lake City.
Nice. Have guests Ann McKinnon. Here. John King,
Here.
IC staff, Connie,
Brown, Marketing and Communications Director.
Taya,
Here.
Beth,
Susan Hartsville Jones, Contracting and Financial Operations Coordinator.
Stephanie Haynes,
Stephanie Haynes, Arts Education and Accessibility Program Manager.
Paige Sharp,
Paige Sharp, Deputy Director of Program.
Maya Michelson,
Maya Michelson, Executive Director.
Andre Zine-Sanera,
Good morning, Andre Sanera, Deputy Director of Operations and Strategic Partnerships.
and introducing our new grants. Data manager.
Eric Ashby, I'm here.
Oh, and Kelsey Paper.
Hi, present.
Excellent. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Renee, were you introduced? Or did I just miss that? Sorry. Okay, sorry. Okay, well, we are very pleased to have our new grants and research manager, Eric Ashby, with us today. And Eric, would you like to say a few words about yourself?
Sure, absolutely. It's great to be here. I am originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, born and raised, and came to Indiana about 7 years ago to go to Indiana University, where I completed my undergrad and graduate studies, studied arts administration and public affairs. And prior to joining the Indiana Arts Commission, I worked at IU and the Dean's Office in project management. Got to take John Kay's class, which was great. And then I've also worked with Bridgeway Capital, which is a CDFI in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, that invests a lot in small creative businesses. So I have a bit of a background in creative entrepreneurship investment. And I'm really happy to be working with the IAC, managing the grants operations and research initiatives, and looking forward to getting to know all of you more and continuing down this path. So thanks so much, Alberta.
Awesome. Well, we are very pleased to have you on board. So welcome. Next on the agenda is actually the approval of the agenda and our minutes from our last business meeting on November 9th. Hopefully everybody's had an opportunity to review those before the meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to either the agenda or the minutes?
Yes, this is Lori. I'm was not present at the December 9th meeting, and I'm actually not listed at all as present or not present, but I was not there.
Okay, I'll make the correction and we can leave it as.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Any other corrections or additions? Okay, hearing none, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda and the December 9, 2022 meeting minutes as corrected.
So moved.
Second.
And Stephanie?
Do a quick roll call. Azizi. Approved. Alberta,
Aye.
Raina,
Aye.
Vance,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Jake,
Aye.
Sophia,
Aye.
Renee, Ann,
Aye.
Chad,
Aye.
Walter,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
Kelsey.
Hi.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Stephanie. Next, we have the consent agenda. The items that are submitted for approval are the FY 23 year-to-date financials, the CY 23 agency goals, on-ramp cohort, creating convergence early action grant guidelines, and the cultural district guidelines. And the reports for review are the Indiana General Assembly 2023 session update, the Arts Trust report, communications report, Governor's Arts Award update, strategic framework update, poet laureate report, partnerships, and the commission slate of officers for FY 2024. Does anybody want to remove anything from the consent agenda before we vote to approve? No? Okay, I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Ms. Easy? Aye. Alberta?
Aye.
Rena? Aye. Ruth Ann?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Jake?
Aye.
Sophia? Aye. Renee?
Aye.
Ann?
Aye.
Chad?
Aye.
Walter?
Aye.
Lori?
Aye.
Kelsey?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Next up is Committee on the Future and Andre, FY 24 budget personal goal.
Well, thank you, everybody. I'm excited to present to you our first look for fiscal year 2024 budget. This budget is presented on two assumptions, starting with revenue assumption, which we have right now based on Governor Holcomb's 2024-2025 biennial budget, which is still in the legislation right now. And we're expected to be approved no later than April 29. So based on that assumption for revenue, we have an increase of 23% or 0.1 or personal expenses. 46% of operations and program, which is 2.2 all the way to 0.9. And we also have to understand that there might be a 2% management reserve holdback based on previous fiscal years set by the Indiana State Budget Agency. Additionally, for the federal allocation for the National Endowment of the Arts, we believe and we're expecting the same award allocation as fiscal year 23. We will know by the end of April of what our federal award was going to be. And then we also have great partnership interagency agreements, thanks to Stephanie Haynes, with the Indiana Department of Education, with art integration in the classrooms, and families and services, social agencies for lifelong art and creative agent. On the expenses assumptions, we have to understand that on personnel, we have increased expenditures based on the new revenue compensation study that was due, and also understanding that commission is fully staffed. So that's great to have a full team. And then we also see that we're going to do some support, 12% extra on AOS support, 17% extra on APS, and then increase support on our regional arts partner program. So we're also doing some target funding opportunity, looking at community investment with Ball State University. As I previously mentioned, arts learning and lifelong arts. And then we're also trying to increase artist and idea investment. And then also calendar year 23 marks the cycle for the Governor's Arts Awards. So we're going to be doing commissioning of artist services to do the commission of the awards and then video production services as well. So what's next after here? So we welcome your input and feedback on this process. We want to make sure that you have an input and opportunity to see what's going to be going on and give us some feedback and strategy on that as well. By late April, staff will have more concrete number, both the state and federal numbers. In May, we're going to do an allocation expenditure plan with the staff, pending also the management reserve percentage that the Department of Revenue is going to give us as well. We're presenting to you the budget in the June meeting for your approval, and then fiscal year for the Arts Commission begins on July 1st. With that, any questions?
Doesn't sound like we have questions. You've done a great job.
Good job.
It's going to be the next business meeting that you have the questions.
Oh, yeah, I'm ready for those.
Okay, and you're up now for the electronic meeting policy.
Absolutely. So electronic meeting participation, we're looking at a revision of our policy, and thanks to Stephanie Fandler. We're realizing that the Indiana code right now that we're following, it's 0.3, chapter 0.3. So this is going to update the commissioner the policy that was approved by the commission in September 2021. So what this does is we align now with chapter 3.6, section 4.36, which applies to public agencies of the state. The previous policy that we had applied to municipalities and government bodies. So what that does is allows us a little more flexibility at the time of quorum and participation that we need in person. So it only allows us to have now, instead of having, I believe it was 2/3 before, now it's only going to have 1/3 of the commissioners in person in order for us to have quorum. So as you all remember, in December, we didn't have enough quorum in person, so that's what we had to hold an executive session. So this allows flexibility to move the quorum from 8 people present to 5 people present, and the rest can be online. So this also requires that every commission has to physically attend at least one commission meeting per calendar year. So again, thank you, Stephanie Fenler, for allowing us to put this policy progress and making sure that we're in check and balances with everything that we need to do. Any questions? And that will be an action item on our
Yes.
executive, so.
Yes. Does anyone have any questions for Andre before we vote to approve? Okay. I'll take a motion to approve the electronic meeting policy revisions.
So moved.
Thank you. Azizi. Alberta,
Aye.
Rena,
Aye.
Ruth Ann,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Ray,
Aye.
Jake,
Aye.
Sophia,
Aye.
Renee,
Aye.
Ann,
Aye.
Chad,
Aye.
Walter,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
and Kelsey.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, next is programs, grants and services. And Eric is going to give us an update on AOS and APS applications. Close until midnight last night. You got up early, huh?
Yes. Okay, so midnight last night was our deadline for AOS and APS. And we totaled in with 254 AOS applications, which is up 5% from last year. One thing to note about the AOS applications is that the regional arts partners, which had historically applied in one of our buckets, are now being funded separately. So there's another like 6 or 8 folks that you can think of as in this pool of people as well that are set aside. So that's the AOS folks. And then on the APS side, which is our project support, there are 241 applications that came in, and that's up 2.5% from last year. So we're really happy about that. There were a lot of late night people sliding into the submitted bucket, so that was really exciting to see. So a little bit of a breakdown of where all the applications came from and where we're at. Big thanks to Andre for the beautiful map. In all, APS and AOS combined, 495 applications, which is up 4% from last year. And we've got 79 counties represented, which is really exciting because that's a 4% increase from last year. We have 3 additional counties that didn't apply at all last year that have now applied. So we're going to continue to work to get that number up to 92. And then Region 7 applications, as expected, are pretty high at 124. They were 123 last year. So seeing kind of strong applications from Region 7 as per usual. And Monroe, or not Monroe County, Marion County in the dark blue has a ton, a little over 80. So a lot of strength there.
How many do the green counties have?
The green counties are in the 20s, like low 20s.
Thank you.
So from here, we've just passed the March 9th deadline. Now we're going to work with the regional arts partners to finalize panelists. There are a lot of them to finalize because we have a lot of panels and a lot of applications. So we're going to get those finalized by March 20th. And then we're going to have some orientation webinars for those panelists to understand what the role is, what the expectations are, how you do a panel. And then from there, we're going to have the public grant panels over that 2-week period from April 24th to May 5th. That's both AOS and APS panels. And the way the paneling process works is they're reviewing, each panel is assigned a batch of applications, and they're reviewing those applications on an online Zoom meeting that's open to the public that you're welcome and invited to join. And They will review the application, have any clarifications or questions answered, and finalize their scores during that time. After those are all done, we will finalize the funding recommendations with the reps, get all of that compiled, which we will then present for commission approval at the QBM on June 9th. From there, the award notifications will go out right after that, and then we will get to work on getting that money out the door throughout the fall. So that's where things are headed. Any questions on where we're at, where we're going? Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Any, thoughts as to how we got the other 3 counties?
Fine.
Yeah, she has been out on the road.
Yeah, I've been trying to,
Chicken dinner.
Hear about some, there actually was at least one other county that did get an application submitted in time that we're gonna look at again. Our hope is that should our budget request or our budget hold, that we'll be able to invest in additional funds and going out and seeking out building some relationships in counties where we're currently not funding, because our goal is every county funded.
Right.
And so it's nice to pick up a few organically, which tells us there's organic arts activity happening in those places, and where there isn't, we'll go out and make it. And go out and stir it up. So I'm again happy to see continued upward growth, but again, we're not going to stop here.
Thank you for your efforts in that, because that has been a goal, so it's nice to see it increase. So, great job.
Yes.
Just from the rep perspective, I know that there's been a lot of conversation among my colleagues about reaching out to specific partners to share the message in counties that we don't have existing relationships in. So a lot of communicating with CVBs, libraries, other groups that have more of like a county-wide reach, who might not already be cued into or receiving our communication. So a lot of folks did more of this than I've seen past.
That's great.
I'd encourage maybe working with Traditional Arts Indiana too, because we may have partners that we work with already in some, I recognize some of those counties that we might be able to.
Yep. Yep. Met with Senator Eric Cook from the Bedford area, and just sort of doing an update on session and just sort of where we were, what the commission was working on. And of course, some of those counties are in his neck of the woods. And he mentioned TAI specifically as a potential partner to help us penetrate into some of those underserved. So we'll be coming for you. For sure.
It takes a team.
It does indeed. It does indeed.
Okay, arts projects for Paige.
So it's great to have a conversation like this because we recognize that these programs are really important. But we also recognize that our core programs are not getting to the depth and breadth that we need them to. So I want to talk to you about arts project support and specifically aligning it to be more equitable like we did with arts organization support just this past year. Excellent. So I want to go back to sort of the beginning to remind everyone or to inform folks that are new that we have 2 primary programs that we get funding out throughout the state. And that's arts organization support that just simply supports the operations of organizations, and arts project support, which is open to non-arts organizations. So that's really one that's incredibly important because it's open so much more broadly than just funding arts organizations. So when we're looking at finding a way to fund throughout the state, these are our largest mechanisms. So we really looked at them. So we're looking at the majority of our programming budget for that. And how that plays out in terms of the number of grantees, it's a fairly even split. But most of the grantees are in project support, but vast majority of dollars goes to arts organization support. A grant for AOS, which we call it, could be anywhere from $5,000 to $34,000. Arts project support, it's going to be anywhere from $5,000 or under. So it's, a little bit to a lot is sort of the philosophy here, which is in concert with our vision, arts for everyone, every day, basically all humans on the planet. So that's really our strategy, is to get a little bit to a lot. Very different from other organizations, and that's great. It's just this is the way we do it. So a grand total of about 412. So Eric just showed you some data that's higher than that. We have seen significant growth over time, which is great. We're really getting impact out there. We're just continuing to evaluate how we can even go more deeply and more equitably. So when looking at maps, again, if we look on the left, we're looking at organization support. On the right, we're looking at project support. You can see on the right, there's a deeper value in color. That means there are more grantees for our project support in those areas. We do tend to see that areas of the state that are very rural typically do not have an arts organization. There's just not that density of population. There's certainly exceptions to that rule, but that's quite largely the case. So combining these two programs, we get that richer density of impact. So at least in FY23, and because I guess Andre at the 11th hour, literally last night, did some Jedi magic with Power BI, and he was able to show you how many counties we have not impacted already just from midnight, right? Which is incredible. So thank you for that, Andre. In terms of how many folks were actually funded in FY23, we did not fund 20 counties out of 92, which is kind of a lot, right? Considering the number of humans that we know, the relationships that we have, the incredible power of the regional arts partners, and in Maya's ability to get to all counties in the state, we are deepening that, and we're able to get to more counties, but we're still not there. If we look further at why is that the case with project support, we learn that because that's really the mechanism that's going to be the vehicle to get more folks into the program, into funding in more rural areas of the state. It's a challenging, time-consuming application is what we hear. I get it. I completely agree. It's a relatively low return on investment. You've got to write this big old application, and then it goes to a panel. And then it's also a long lead time to funding. So it's March and I'm submitting an application for a project that's going to be happening potentially a year away. There aren't that many advanced planners out there, particularly when we're looking at rural and volunteer and just humans in general, right? I'm not the most advanced planner. I am at work, but definitely not in my real life. I know. We also noted that the larger under-resourced groups are typically not directly funded by us. So that's something that we also need to work on. And here's a big one. We see a lot of the same applicants being funded. And Eric did a great job delving into the data to get an idea of what that looks like. So I say all of this, recognizing that changing the arts project support program is inevitable. We need to do that. It needs to become more equitable. We also envision this as this and approach. We will do AOS, APS, and another mechanism is likely going to be needed in order to get the impact that we are looking for. So what Eric uncovered when he looked at the data was that from FY17 to 23, over 50% of the grantees are repeat grantees. So they received this grant over and over again, which is great. And at the same time, I often wonder how many nonprofit organizations are there in the state of Indiana? And I sometimes wonder if it's equal to the population of Rhode Island, that's Rhode Island. But there's a lot of nonprofits in Indiana, and yet we're having a significant repeat. 40% just from 22 to 23. Interestingly, 50% of those grantees are arts organizations. What? We have an arts organization support program. So we had lowered that threshold to 20,000 in terms of operating budget for this year. So we're going to see if that's changed anything. We want to fund arts organizations for sure. Interestingly, 27% or almost 30% of organizations are multidisciplinary, which means that they do lots of types of art forms. CAP is one of those, right? So they do visual arts and they also do, they have sound and performances and things like that. And then a lot of them are performance-based, which is interesting to figure out. Woo! My mouse is being melodramatic over here. It knows me well, it's echoing who I am, I suppose. So what does this mean? Organizations are getting funded every year. APS grants for arts organizations, which is really interesting. The most common grant is performance, but there's so many other disciplines out there. So that's really interesting for us to be aware of. And is there an opportunity to engage more non-arts organizations for project support, and how might we do that? So our vision in evaluating this whole thing is likely a suite of project support options to serve a broader audience, where there's traditionally no IAC direct support. And so that to do that, our goal is to align with our cultural equity statement, like we did with arts organization support this past year, and develop an actionable plan to augment APS. Actionable meaning, we recognize that we have a certain amount of capacity at our organization or agency, as well as our regional arts partners. So maybe a plan of action that'll go over a number of years. So we are looking for consultants to assess how are other states doing this, to learn from staff and partners on how this might fit into the scheme of things, gather field input, which is critical to help us understand what's really happening out there and how we can better serve folks around the state, and then provide recommendations to you all. So unlike EOS, a separate, we'll look at how we fund projects in general, not just arts project support. We need to get an understanding of how we're doing this and why. What's our why? So the timeline that we're looking to implement this is very similar to last year as well, where we will find the consultant, and we've already been in conversation with people, and we will start those efforts so that we can bring recommendations to you all in September, so that those changes will go into the guidelines, or at least arts project support for sure, in December of this year, for those changes to go into effect in the next set of guidelines, so next year's guidelines. So in short, we'll be getting a consultant, aligning APS with a more equitable lens, finding other solutions to come alongside, and presenting those recommendations to you in September for implementation into the other primary program and potentially others. Really by September. Is that making sense? Okay. Any questions?
Hey,
Comment.
John,
Go ahead.
sorry, I don't know if I'm talking over someone.
You're good, go ahead.
Okay, just a quick, you likely already thought of this, but I'm conscious when you were talking about just the nature of arts organizations, especially in underserved counties, that Professor Kirsten Gronberg at the O'Neill School has done a tremendous amount of research on arts organizations in Indiana. And she's actually, I think, gone, she's now maybe an emerita professor. And I don't know if you've looked at her research, nor whether what she's doing specifically could be helpful here, but I don't think she's a candidate to be a consultant in this for the kind of project that we're envisioning, but it might be worth taking a look at some of the research that she's done, if she's done anything recently. So just a suggestion. You may be familiar with the research that she's done already.
Yeah, totally. We had her specifically take her nonprofit research and isolate arts organizations so we could better understand what was going on with them. And I think at that time, which is quite a few years ago at this point, I think one of the greatest outcomes that we noticed was the significant amount of turnover in that particular sector, which we still see, and I think was an outcome of some of the applicants not getting into the pool in FY24, quite honestly. But Thank you. And I think there is a more recent addition, and I will look into that because I believe it's within the last couple of years.
And to your point, Lori, she would have, I mean, again, she surveys all kinds of nonprofit organizations, and because this.
Right.
All nonprofit organizations are eligible, she'd be a great resource to start with and help them to understand what needs are with that. So that's a fantastic suggestion.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really a fun fact of how many nonprofit organizations are out there. And a burning question in my mind.
Is there any kind of list of people from the different counties, art organizations and art project people that apply? Any kind of list that can be shared with commissioners and maybe even the regional art partners, so we know who's in contact with us? Is there a list of who's not in contact? And I'm thinking if the commissioners had that list, maybe we would be aware of people in our regions that should be added to the list.
Sure, yeah, I'm also looking at Anne because she's a regional arts partner. There are myriad lists. There's the list of what we have as past and current applicants and grantees. And then the partners have their own list of folks that they have reached out to and, you know, cultivating relationships, absolutely. And I think what we're going to really need is, as we go to the field input, we really need to hear from people who are not grantees and have not been applicants, and or if they apply, we're like, oh my God, or they look at the, we need to understand what they're seeing. Because I think getting them at the table at the very beginning helps ensure that they will be a potential applicant in the future. And it's from those folks that we're hearing that that it is a cumbersome program. But to your point, we'll make sure to capture some detailed information relevant to each region. So if a commissioner such as yourself wants to go to that extra mile to, you know, develop important relationships, it is Indiana. We are human. Relationships matter. And that's testimonial to what Anne was talking about with Myra Tech in terms of getting more applicants. And
That's why I think it's important that the commission and the regional art partners share with the commissioners who's being reached out to. So, you know.
And I think that's important, very much so, when we talk about trying to move from the however many that potentially will fund, trying to get all 92 counties, right? So I think once we've identified who won't be funded through this cycle and those counties that we'll be going after, leveraging the relationships our commissions have in those regions and with those counties, you may know of an organization or of someone that we could leverage to help get something. So that, I think that's. So thank you.
the key thing is finding folks that are not being funded and then developing our contact list, particularly around under-resourced groups, you know, groups that are serving individuals with disabilities, even Hispanic serving organizations, things that just are, the thing is they're not in our network, so they're not hearing about it, right? So that's a core area that we really need to learn.
If I remember right, you guys have gone to AIM, the Association of Indian Municipalities. I assume this is one of the things you've talked to them about. And would they be willing to, in terms of getting some input, maybe a survey of the mayors and the county elected officials?
Yep.
And could also, I mean, for those areas that aren't at all, have never had, you've got a county that hasn't applied, could maybe utilize that relationship to be intentional with, for those, perhaps it's a government grant, a city grant that funds a festival or something.
Absolutely. And thinking about targeting counties as well, we're thinking about aligning with the local community foundation. And so we're going to reach out to the Indiana Philanthropy Alliance and work with them, because maybe there's a really structural way we can help cultivate interest in investing from that particular foundation. You know, you can get a donor who wants to fund that's targeted specifically to arts and culture. And some other community foundations in very rural areas recognize how powerful that is. They've even matched our grants 1-to-1. They're like, this is a fastidious grant. We'll just match it. You could, that's plenty, which is great. So we're thinking of multiple strategies. So AIM for sure, that's a really great idea. Certainly, I love the idea of the nonprofits in general and thinking along Christine's terms, as well as community foundations. Are there other structures or networks that we're thinking about that you guys are aware of beyond that?
AIM is Accelerate Indiana Municipalities, which is statewide. It used to be Indiana Association of Cities and Towns, I think. So they rebranded themselves. So we actually Connie and Andre went down to their annual conference in November. Where Connie bonded with all the clerk treasurers today. Big happy clerk treasurers, and Stephanie Haynes did a presentation on creative aging. So we are working really closely with them on a lot of things, but it's great to be reminded of them.
And quality of places.
Yes,
particularly.
very much so. I was just that
Resonates with that.
Yes.
group.
Completely. And I want to we're talking a lot about organizations here, right? That's what we're talking about, kinds of organizations, but I also want to just put out there that we anticipate this conversation around project support to be larger than just organizations. We currently don't fund artists with the exception of on-ramp. That's the only mechanism we have to support supporting artists. And those are artists who are in a specific space right now, who are working in creative entrepreneurship and want to move up a business forward. We have put on pause our two biggest program pause. I say it's just resting. Our Arts in the Parks and Historic Sites program, and then individual advancement program. Those two programs, legacy programs that support artists, we are not doing. We are not supporting projects for artists. We also should recognize and be open to that there could be other partners that we need to support project implementation with besides in addition to organizations, right? And so we might come back to the commission with a calibration of a project support program that artists are providing versus organizations. So just want to, or that convention visitors bureaus are, or that community foundations are. So just want to put it out there that when Paige talks about we're doing a deep dive into projects, what we mean by that is that we're going to say, we're going to go at it with, here's why we support projects, and here's why this is important, and who are all the kinds of organizations, people, and places that could do projects, and how do we do that? So again, you could see from us in September some recommendations around organizations, but then some recommendations around other partners. Projects. Because at the end of the day, it's the projects we're interested in, not necessarily who's doing them, although we're interested in, but the vehicle is the thing that we're looking for. Because in rural places or in underserved areas where there aren't arts organizations, projects are the way that arts experience. So again, I just want to put that out there so that should we show up in September with some ideas around artists and supporting artists projects, that it doesn't. So
I would be remiss if I neglected to mention and make sure you're connected with Okra.
yes,
Their community
Yes.
liaison.
Yeah.
So
the Office of Community Rural Affairs, another state agency. Yes, absolutely.
because if you're not getting a good response, I know someone who could make sure you do.
Yeah. We meet with their community liaisons. Okra, state agency, Office of Community Rural Affairs, has what's similar to our regional arts partners in community liaisons, and they have districts or leads across the state, and we meet with them periodically.
And they live in those districts.
And they live in those districts, so they know those places. And so absolutely, as it relates to the places that we're not getting penetration related to any kind of applications, the community liaisons are really important part of that conversation. So thank you. Does we, again, work with folks that are in our own backyard, so. Any other questions for Paige around projects? So in short, we're doing essentially the same process, more or less, hopefully with a lot less technical pieces that we did for our arts organization support last year. Last year and this year for projects. So you will probably see a survey, you might have an opportunity to participate in a focus group. Any commissioners that are interested in getting active in this process, let Paige know. Because again, we will be working with probably a team of consultants to help us get through this. A pretty aggressive timetable because project support happens every year. We're now moving into a cycle where we're only going to support arts organizations through organizational support every 2 years. Project support, we have an opportunity to do a retool for our FY25 cycle. So this is why we're kind of pushing to do this now in the hopes that some new program, at least we'll have a schedule and a timeline for new program introduction within this year. Any other questions for Paige? Okay.
Well, thank you, Paige and Maya. Great discussion. Look forward to the revamp of APS. Okay, Stephanie Haynes, you are up. Accessibility overview.
Madam Chair. Would be okay to go on break.
Oh, yeah, okay,
Quick
yeah,
short break.
yeah. Thank you.
10-minute
So-
break.
We'll take a 2-minute break and get rid of this. Sure. Sure. Okay.
So, put it in this.
You also want to show.
Oh, shit. Connie, can you make me? Sorry, while you're at it. Yeah. Right, right.
Yeah, schedule, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, basketball team to watch. Stephanie, you're gonna be talking.
I'm up here, I'm gonna try to give a Grammy nominated presentation.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, today I am tasked with talking with you all about accessibility at the IAC, part of my job title, Arts Education and Accessibility Program Manager. And the reason that my job title has accessibility in it is that we are required by our national partners, the National Endowment for the Arts, that fund part of our budget and our major partners for the work we do, to have a 504 coordinator on staff. All state arts agencies do. So what is 504? What is 504? Why do we have a 504 coordinator? I'm going to talk about that. Does anyone in their other work life do accessibility work? It's not just for the arts, but I don't want to kind of in. Okay, great. A little bit. I see some. Yep. That's kind of what I said when I started at IT. Like, I know what that means. But the 504 coordinator is part of the Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. So this came before the ADA existed, and it was specifically to applied to federal and state government agencies. So because we have federal funding and we're a state agency, we have this law that applies to the work we do. And this law still stands, that protects individuals from discrimination based on their disability. So Section 504. Then later, 1990 came the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA. You probably know this one for sure, because this more broadly applies to all commercial facilities, all public accommodations, any restaurant, hotel, any facility where you're inviting the public in also has to be accessible to people with disabilities. So both of those types of both of those laws apply to what we do at the Indiana Arts Commission. And what we do with that role as being a leader in accessibility for our field, we provide technical assistance to grantees so that they know they need to comply with the ADA. And we provide resources and capacity building. And we grow and maintain our own accessibility for meetings, events, and things we do. I'll give a few examples of each of these. So for technical assistance, up until midnight last night, I was getting phone calls from applicants. There's a section on the application for our grants that says, are you going to be accessible to people with disabilities with this grant funding? If they say no, they're not eligible for our funding. If they say yes, then they can move on in the application. But a lot of them have questions about that. What does it mean to be accessible? A lot of them have misconceptions about that. Like, I'm in a historic building, like TAF here. So I can't really do anything. I'm grandfathered in. This building was built before we started doing arts things, so we don't have to worry about it. That is a misconception. It's a myth. And Zizi, our architect in-house here, says, nope, there's no grandfather clause related to the ADA. There are some large, if the accommodation you're trying to make costs $1 million, that would be above and beyond what would be required under the ADA. But generally speaking, there are things that are achievable, readily achievable barrier removal, a temporary ramp. You don't have to get rid of all your stairs and build a whole new ramp, but you can put in a temporary ramp. You can rent a ramp, and those things fall within what we would call readily achievable accommodation. So I'm helping grantees, all 500 across the state, understand what that means for their situation, and all their situations are different. Some of them are doing outdoor festivals. Some of them are in rented spaces. They don't have their own buildings, so they have to see, oh, we're in a school gymnasium. Does that mean we're okay? Some of them are in historic buildings. So everyone's got a little bit different situation. And I talk with them, if they have questions, I talk them through what ADA compliance might mean for them. So that's the technical assistance we give. We give resources and capacity building. So last month, preparing for the application, we hosted a webinar with Great Lakes ADA, and they are a national or regional technical support organization specifically for ADA. If you want to know about the Americans with Disabilities Act and the rules related to that, you call your regional ADA center. So for us in this region, it's the Great Lakes ADA Center. We hosted their executive director on a webinar just for our arts organizations so that she could talk them through what does that look like for arts organizations being compliant with the ADA. It was a lot. She had so much information and the ADA is so broad. It was like drinking from the fire hose kind of thing. But we're following that up with another series of accessibility webinars. And this is capacity building for the field. So you've already applied, you've got through the application. That's what scares people the most. So now, once you get your grant money and you go to design your program out in your community, how are you gonna make those accommodations as requested? You know, we don't know who's gonna come to your door, or what disability they might have, but are you prepared when someone calls and says, in 2 weeks, I'd really like to see the play that you're putting on. Can you please provide an ASL interpreter for us? Are you prepared? This is what I talk to the arts organizations through. Are you prepared to, okay, I know who to call. I know how to hire an ASL interpreter. We have a line item budget for it. And we're going to provide that for you in 2 weeks. Just tell me the date and time. So the capacity building and that we're doing with these webinars is just that, just getting people comfortable and equipped to make those accommodations when they arise in those communities. The last thing, grow and maintain IAC's accessibility. We're constantly looking at accessibility of the work we do with our applications. Can our guidelines be read by a screen reader? If you're a person with visual impairment and are using a screen reader. We had a consultant go through the guidelines this year and do some screen reader testing with it. I, as part of the 504 coordination, I go to conferences annually, the Leadership Exchange in Arts and Disability, the LEAD conference hosted by the Kennedy Center. The regional organizations fund all the 504 coordinators for the state arts agencies to go there. So we're gathering resources, making sure what we do in our spaces is accessible. There's always room to grow though. One other thing I'll mention is that every year in December, we go through what's called the 504 workbook. The National Endowment for the Arts put together this, like, I don't know, 100-page binder that you go through and you check a lot of boxes. You know, are your toilets 18 inches from the walls? And are there bars at this height? And are your water fountains this height? And most of those things, because we've been in the same building for a long time, remain the same every year. But then there are some things that are stretch goals for us. So this very presentation is in the 504 workbook. The checkbox says, does your board know about accessibility and how it applies to your organization? And so one December, when we were talking through this, I said, I don't know. I don't know if our board knows about that. So let's give a presentation. So here we are. We're meeting our best practice this year on talking about accessibility with the full board. And I thank you for listening to that because I can check the box. Yes. Other things we've done to improve our accessibility at the IAC is we've put together 3 years ago an accessibility advisory committee comprised of people with disabilities and people representing the disability community. And we meet twice a year. And I put forth some questions for them and some tasks like, could you look at our guidelines or our self-assessment checklist for accessibility and give me feedback on that? So getting feedback from the disability community is a best practice. And I also ask them questions like, if I were to do a webinar, who do you think would be a good representative of the disability community? So they help me curate this webinar series that's coming up. I don't think I finished that thought. The next webinar is coming up March 23rd with Betty Siegel from the Kennedy Center. She leads the LEAD conference.
And so we got the technical information from the ADA, the Great Lakes ADA before. Now Betty's going to talk about planning for accessibility. So how do you think ahead? Get ahead of it. Don't just be at the last hour on your application going, oh my gosh, I got to check this box. Are we accessible? But think about it in advance, put it in your strategic plan, put it in your budget, have a line item for accommodations, those sorts of things. She's going to get people thinking ahead on accessibility. We're going to follow that up with a webinar on how to make outdoor festivals and pop-up events accessible. And we're going to follow that up with a webinar about front of house staff, customer service for events, that making sure all of your customer service front of house staff from start to finish understand how to interact with a person with a disability. And then we've got a final webinar about patient learning. The last one. Oh, there's another one coming in too. Stay tuned. It'll be a mystery.
It's pretty wild.
Art Mix. If you don't know Art Mix in Indianapolis, they're a fantastic organization formerly called the BSA, Very Special Arts, which is a national group, and BSA no longer exists, but the Art Mix is a nonprofit that's been around for a long time, and they specialize in arts for people with disabilities and integrated programming for everyone. So we're partnering with Art Mix. We're happy to partner with them on this webinar series. So those are all the examples. I talked about the 504. We really, with the accessibility advisory committee, with the going through the 504 every year, and every year we set 3 goals to grow in our accessibility of our programs and services. So when I go through the 504 checklist in December, January, we meet as a staff and I say, we can't do everything, but what are 3 things we can aim for this year? And sometimes we hit them, sometimes it takes us 2 years to hit them, but here we are at this. And the advisory committee was a goal we had before that we accomplished, so on and so forth. And so we're kind of a leader in that work, having it be an ongoing part of the programming we do. Often the state agencies have a lot going on, and accessibility will be one thing that happens 1 month a year, but we really lead the field in having it be embedded in our program. And we participate in conferences, and I've been able to present some of our work, like the advisory committee and some other things at some national gatherings. Oh, here's our amazing advisory committee from all over the state and representing different communities. And so what I'm going to leave you guys with on accessibility is you can know that we have resources. Last year, as one of our goals, we revamped our website when it comes to accessibility. And so there's some really great resources, and I think it's pretty usable as far as the first question is, are you applying for a grant? Or is it all urgent and you need the bare minimum information? Click here and it'll give you the bare minimum you need to get through the grant application. And then the next question is, are you putting on an event that you need resources for? Something you're thinking ahead about and you're specifically trying to make an event accessible. Click here and there's resources related to that. And the last one is, if you're trying to actually grow your accessibility to your organization, you're really trying to dive deep, here's the deeper resources. So you click here. So if you get any questions from constituents in your communities, know that you can send them to our website. We've got some great stuff on there. And it'll link to the Great Lakes ADA, it'll link to the NEA, it'll link to lots of partners that they can find more resources on. So always keep accessibility in mind. If you come to a meeting like this and you say, whatever, there's something that isn't as accessible as it could be, let's turn on captions on Zoom or YouTube, which YouTube automatically will do it, so we don't have to do that. But if you think of anything like that and you want to make suggestions to me, please know that I'm totally open to suggestions and ideas. And then share out our resources. When we have the webinar series coming up in a month, please share that out and encourage people to join us. That's it about accessibility. Question.
Yeah, I have and I may have missed this, I apologize, but is our website itself accessible to people with hearing or vision or mobility impairments?
Yeah,
Okay,
Most of our website is owned by state government, is controlled.
right.
The framework is controlled. As anyone who's been part of a large institution, Lori knows. Some things are owned by the institution. The website framework is, but they have recently done a great job at adding a bunch of accessibility features. So previously, we would have scored pretty poorly on a website audit. I think it's doing better. We still get complaints about the website, but we're doing what we can. But that is a really good point. A website is a key element to engaging people with accessibility. Do you have suggestions around that, Lori?
Nothing that is specifically technical. I'm very involved in a service learning program at the Luddy School in Bloomington that we put teams of undergraduates out into Bloomington area nonprofits to do IT support. Most of that is website development.
Yeah.
And we have actually recently, last few years, I guess, added a required element for everyone that the websites that our students are developing are ADA compliant, are handicapped accessible, excuse me. So I'm aware that there are standards that websites have to meet. They're probably also in, as you say, what state government is looking at, but my only suggestion would that I can make a connection just to do a check there, because I know that program is trying to stay as much up on those standards as possible to ensure that what we're doing is at the top level of compliance.
That would be so cool if we could get a student team to
So
audit.
it'd be a reasonable check, and that our service learning program, frankly, is available to the Indiana Arts Commission.
Hey, that sounds
So,
great.
yeah, I'll do a little connection offline.
So Stephanie, once you have that, if you would like to raise that up with how, quite honestly, all of state government ought to have fully accessible. So
Yeah.
if I could have a checklist, I'd be happy to
Awesome.
get some folks.
Yeah. Like I said, IoT's been making great strides, but we always love to share feedback with them to keep improving. I know you guys are on our website often, so next time you're on our website, go ahead and look up in the upper right corner. There's a drop down or a button you can click that says accessibility features, and it'll drop down a menu that has some great options like, do you want to enlarge the text? Do you want it to be low contrast or high contrast? Do you want to take out the flashing things if you're a person that is affected by flashing? So there's some of those options on there now that I got really excited when they rolled them out. But yes, I would love to connect with you, Lori, about a website audit. Other questions? We get a lot of questions from the field about like, okay, my building's one level, there's no steps, I'm good to go, right? So a lot of the time I spend talking to them about what is beyond physical accessibility, what is having people with non-mobility related disabilities interact with your work. So visual impairments, hearing impairments, deaf people, sensory friendly is a big thing in the theater community right now. So talking about the whole picture is a lot of what I talk about.
I just want to say we appreciate you, Stephanie, for all you do and making this knowledge available to people who reach out to you. It's a lot for you to keep up with. I'm sure.
Thank you.
That you're appreciated.
It's pretty magical. All right,
really
go on. You're gonna get a good Stephanie show today. On the stage. Alberta, may I?
Absolutely.
You want?
I just want to say not only was that very informative, but we appreciate being able to help you check your box.
Okay.
Product commissioner, and visual hearing.
I'm gonna.
Well, I have both.
Better see my hair.
We have not had like an ASL interpreter on our.
Yes.
For any of our board meetings previously.
No, yeah, Brian, I can't speak to the more distant past, but certainly and probably last 20 years, I would say it's a compliment.
Yeah. That's an interesting
But
challenge.
it's great.
I
Yeah,
accept.
absolutely.
All right, next I'm going to talk about the Indiana Educator Fellowship for Creative Teaching. This is we haven't come up with an acronym yet because I was saying INFCT is like infect. It's really a bad word right now. Oh, we haven't come up with an acronym. But this is a new program we're rolling out. It's more than a new program, it's an evolution of the programming we've been doing in arts education for the last several years. So the goal of this program is to harness the power of the arts in classrooms every day for every subject, every core subject, curriculum area like math, science, social studies, etc. And we will accomplish this goal by inviting 20 teachers into a learning cohort this year. We've had a lot of success at the IC with cohort-based models with our on-ramp and with our lifelong arts. We're doing this with teachers. We're going to provide them with an honorarium, $1,000 as a thank you for being a fantastic teacher in Indiana and some of the time they're going to commit to this learning cohort. And we're going to give them big public recognition. We're just going to raise these teachers up and get everyone excited that these teachers are looking to creativity to improve the lives of their students. And we're really excited about that. We are going to be partnering with the selected educators with arts organizations in their communities so that the artists and arts organizations can work side by side with the teacher to create a creative classroom for that teacher. And it's not all on the teacher to do it alone. We're going to harness the energy and the willingness of our arts organization partners to make this happen for teachers and students. So going back a little bit, we started with PACE. I know some people are new, so I'm going to give the history here. 2014 to 2021, the Indiana Arts Commission was very much focused on this PACE program, partnering arts, communities, and education. This was a research program, kind of a pilot program that laid the bedrock for the work we're doing now. The research initiative investigated the impact of arts integration in schools. We embedded artists for 20 weeks in an elementary classroom to see what would happen with the student outcomes. And the good news is that the research showed that we just concluded last year, the research showed that a positive, consistent growth for the student learning at every site we did. We did 10 sites, different types of communities, rural communities, metropolitan, smaller schools, larger schools. It was all over the state. And every single school showed consistent positive growth. So that research showed that this arts integration model is good for students. So we're going to continue with it, right? So we did this kind of pilot research model, only 10 sites in the state. How can we roll it out now? How can we spread it out across the state and spread the good word about arts integration? For the last 2 years, we've been working with the Department of Education. They came alongside towards the end of our PACE program, and they said, let's do this. Let's show more teachers that they can do this in their classroom. And that became the Arts Integration Learning Lab. So we did a summer institute one day in 2 different locations in the state where we had about 80 teachers come learn. And so now we're going from 10 sites across the state. We have 80 people in the room, and it's starting to be disseminated all over the state. And that was paired with grants for 25 schools to hire artists to come in. So that was last summer. We went back to our partners at the Department of Education and the Title Funding Department. And we said, do you want to keep doing this? What do you think? They said, yes, it's awesome. Let's keep doing this. And that is what became now this year, the Indiana Educator Fellowship for Creative Teaching. We're going to go deeper with a smaller group of teachers, 20 teachers. They're going to become the ambassadors for this work. We're going to spend about 10 months with them, online learning, and then we'll do an in-person learning in the summer and really get them excited to be leaders in arts integration. Like I said, we'll partner them with an arts organization, and in the fall of this year, they'll be doing their residencies. They'll bring in artists to work with their students and kind of co-teach artists and teachers side by side so that social studies can be acted out. The theater artist leading and the teacher supplying the needed information to meet the standards, and the artist providing the method with which to engage the students. So you become George Washington crossing the Delaware. And we find that obviously is very, very engaging, and students retain the information using arts integration techniques. So the Indiana Department of Education, we are very thankful that they've been a strong partner with us. They provide insight as we're developing the program. They help adjudicate the grants with us. And they help with outreach when we need to reach educators. Who better than the Department of Education to help us disseminate information and funding support. So this current new contract we're going into with the Department of Education is for 2 years at $450,000 for 2 years of this fellowship program. And next summer, 2024, July 2024, we'll be doing a big conference funded here with the Department of Education partnership. That it'll be all arts education folks coming together, really making a difference for students through the arts. So look out for that coming next summer. So what I'm asking, or what I wanted to leave you guys with is, please, right now, the application's open for this fellowship. It's open right now. Please invite teachers that you know to apply. So we're looking for non-arts teachers. The learning for this is how to bring arts into what you're doing. Arts teachers, they do it every day. They're already experts in this area. So we're looking for non-arts teachers, any grade level, K through 12. Please invite friends. We'll share the links and things with you after the meeting, Connie. Thank you. And so for today's action, because this is happening in the next month or two, we hope to provide the selection committee the ability to choose the cohort of 20 teachers. That will happen in April. That selection will happen in April. And this will allow the teachers to get prepared for the July training before, our June QBM. At the June QBM, I will be presenting the names of those fellows and then request funding for the residencies that will happen in the fall. So right now, all we're talking about is selection of the cohort. And in your materials, you will see in my memo the list of who's on the selection committee. So if you wanted to refer to that, that would be in there. That's the action for today.
Any questions about
Questions?
this partnership?
We have good pictures. I just didn't have time to put them in the PowerPoint. I apologize.
So we have an action to approve the guidelines.
This is to the seat authority to the selection committee to select the cohort of 20.
Okay. So we need a motion to seat authority.
So moved.
Second,
And Stephanie.
Basiti. Alberta.
Aye.
Raina. Aye. Ruth Ann.
Aye.
Dave.
Aye.
Greg.
Aye.
Jake.
Aye.
Sophia.
Aye.
Renee.
Aye.
Ann.
Aye.
Chad.
Aye.
Walter. Lori.
aye.
Kelsey. Aye. Thank you, motion carries.
Any questions about the program, suggestions, ideas? I have had Kelsey and Ruth Ann on my advisory committee as we've been developing this stuff. Anything you want to add, Ruth Ann? Sorry. Kelsey?
No,
Okay,
I think you covered it.
okay. Okay. One more, promise. This is my favorite fun presentation to have because we do, this one does have good pictures like this. This is, the artist here is Elizabeth Leachman in South Bend doing a dance program at the community center site. That's exciting. I'm going to talk to you today about Lifelong Arts Indiana, and because we have new people, do a little bit of repeating myself from December, but at the end, I'll get into why I'm talking about it again. So Lifelong Arts Indiana is our new initiative around creative aging being arts for older adults. Generally, we use the age 65 and older, but that's very flexible. In 2021, we began investigating how this might look here in Indiana for the Arts Commission.
2022, we received a grant from the National Assembly of State Arts Agencies, which we call NASA, the other NASA. And so we implemented a pilot program. We matched that funding, a little bit more than 1-to-1. And we funded the first cohort of lifelong Arts Indiana artists. This is kind of, I was thinking of this when Maya was talking about what would projects for artists look like. This is what this is. We gave $1,500 to each artist in there was 25 in the first cohort. This is kind of our pilot program. And we said, here, take this. We trained them on how to work with older adults. There is a specific approach that's for working with older adults. It includes more time for socialization than you would normally put in a learning situation, and different ways of designing the experience sequentially over time. But we trained the artists and said, here's $1,500, take this back to your community and work with older adults. And this was a very successful model. The artists found whatever was right for their community. If it's a smaller community and they went to the library and that was the best place for them to work with older adults. Sometimes it was a church basement. Sometimes it was an art center like this. Anywhere where older adults were already gathering, an artist would come in and say, can I present you my origami project over the next 5 weeks? They got a lot of enthusiastic yes. We don't have to pay you. You're already getting paid by the Arts Commission. Yeah, come on in. Got a lot of partnerships like that. And the artists were surprised at how easy it was to create these partnerships. They didn't like have the confidence at first, not all of them, but they didn't have the confidence to go out there and make partnerships in their community. It was not something an individual artist may maybe be used to doing. They went out, they did it, they made these amazing partnerships, and they were like, I can't believe how excited these people were to host me. And they said yes. So the artists gained this confidence to go out and make these partnerships happen. And we met monthly with the artists just to check in. They would come back to me and say, this is the best thing I've ever done. Working with these older adults, they're so excited to be there. I'm learning from them, they're learning from me, they're learning from each other. There's so much interesting things happening. I had artists tell me, this has renewed my interest in my own practice. I am so excited doing this work with older adults. I'm just so thankful you guys gave me this opportunity. And Eric was on the call with me yesterday. They said it all again. We're funding them again for a second year, and they just couldn't thank us enough that we gave them this opportunity. So it's going really well, to say the least. So after we did that first cohort with 25 artists, and they were doing great, and they gave me these awesome pictures, and I had all these good stories from them. We put the research from some national research that's been done. We put these stories and the pilot outcomes together, and we presented them to our fellow state agency, the Division of Aging, which falls under FSSA. That's the larger agency, which stands for Family Social Services Agency Administration. And we said, do you want to do this? It's going really well. And they said, yes, let's do it. Major expansion statewide. And they also happen to have some funding that wasn't being utilized. And we said, this is great. We can help you take this funding, get it out statewide. We had really great success reaching rural communities through this program. We will ensure that it's all follows best practices and research evidence-based. And they couldn't be happier for us to help them spend this money. But with this major expansion, we're adding a different element to it. So we're still funding artists. We're going to have this year, instead of 25, we're going to have 75 artists being funded through the program. But we're adding on the aging service providers. That is folks who work at senior centers, folks who work in libraries or other places that serve older adults. We want them to be as excited as the artists are about this work and understand how to partner with an artist from their side of it. So we've set up 4 trainings. We're hoping to get about 200 folks through our trainings this year that work in this aging service provider sector. And we already are doing great. The registration's out there. We've got, I don't know, 30 or so people signed up for our first training, and we just released the registration. So it's humming along. Fort Wayne is our first location, April 28th. Then we'll be in Bloomington in the summer, Evansville in the fall, and Gary in November. So those trainings is a big expansion of the program. So alongside the artists, these aging service providers will also have funding to hire artists to come in and to work with their older adult population. We also are adding a major research evaluation program. We're partnering with the University of Indianapolis to produce an evaluation of the program that we hope to really be a good model for the whole country as we move forward in creative aging. So what I'm asking you to do with this program is invite artists to apply for the artist training. That application is open right now. We are busy as Arts Commission. And invite your local partners that you know in that aging services sector, saying senior centers, libraries, community centers, anyone who works with older adults, invite them to come. The training's free. But grants afterwards, there is some eligibility around that, like it can't be a skilled nursing facility. They have to have come to the training and some other things, but the training is for anyone, totally free. So, and it's just a 1 day, like a 9 to 4 training. And then we're going to give grants, early action grants to those eligible attendees of the training. So today I do have an action for you. So if you remember back at the December QBM, you already approved the guidelines. You know what, I'm just remembering the arts education one did have guidelines, didn't it? Yeah, I messed that up. I messed it up. Okay, well, this one doesn't have guidelines. You guys already approved the guidelines. And today's action will also provide the selection committee the ability to approve the early action grants. That is because we're doing something different with these. We're doing a rolling deadline. Every 2 months, we'll be approving grants that provide flexibility for these aging service providers who aren't generally grant writers to come in when they feel comfortable to do this work. That rolling deadline doesn't align with the QBM, so I've assembled a really great team of experts for the selection committee. You can see that team in the memo that I wrote. And then at June, we'll bring to you the artist cohort and the artist funding selection. But right now, this is the ceding of authority to the selection committee for early action grants. That was a lot of information. Shirley, you have questions? Sorry. Thoughts?
I think our visit last night to Westminster,
Yeah.
those of us that were able to go, it certainly affected me in the sense of obviously how successful the program is and that there's a need for it. And so
Like I
that's a
said,
good thing.
yeah.
I think we're on the right track with this program.
Like I said last night at Westminster, they're the gold standard. Lafayette is lucky to have that facility available to them. And that is not the case in most communities in Indiana. And that hopefully we're filling that need with our program. It couldn't be more. Definitely from what we saw in the first year, there is a hunger for this type of work.
I think too many of the places have the craftsy things, like they said, but do something with these popsicle sticks or, you know, not on an artistic level that we'd like to see happen.
Yeah. And the artists are there. The artists are there in every community,
Right.
willing and able. We just have to make the fit happen. And that's a perfect role, I think, for the Indiana Arts Commission to bring these communities together. And honestly, my goal, since we, thought of this program, we first had our big brainstorm, was that we would step out of this in several years from now, that the aging service providers would start to understand what it is. We could train them up so that they train each other. And all of a sudden, aging service providers are using the arts all the time in all the work they do.
And they potentially become arts project support grant applicants, right? We
Yeah.
move them into, partnership with us in other ways.
We're here at the beginning, making these connections happen. I'm excited.
Well, someone who is aging, I certainly appreciate all the work that you're doing.
I feel like that. I selfishly want this to be available forever too. I mean, we're all aging. That is the truth. And I can't wait till I'm in my post-work life and there's 100 opportunities for me to participate in.
But it's great to see, like they have mentioned, it's like the work too, that the success that it has with the individuals that are aging. And the meaningful impact that it can also have on families when loved ones pass, and being able to pass on artwork that many family members didn't even know really there was an interest in, or they did anything. So it's fantastic work. Thank you. Really appreciate that. Any other comments before we vote? If not, I'll take a motion. Stephanie, do you want to state what the motion is?
Me or her?
Yeah.
Okay, this one is seed selection, you say it, you have it in the agenda.
Yeah, seed selection and funding approval to the Creative Aging Review Panel.
There we go.
Okay.
So moved.
Thank you.
Great. It's easy. Alberta,
Aye.
Raina,
Aye.
Ruth Ann,
Aye.
Dave,
Yes.
Greg,
Aye.
Jake,
Yes.
Sophia,
Aye.
Renee,
Aye.
Anne,
Aye.
Chad,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
Kelsey.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
We need to go back and do that.
Yeah, so about, you asked me if it had guidelines, arts education one had the guidelines, and I said, no.
So we need to circle back and.
Thank you, thank you. Oh, yeah.
I make a motion to approve the guidelines for the.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Yeah, here we go.
Aye.
Alberta,
Aye.
Raina. Ruth Ann,
Aye.
Dave,
Yes.
Greg.
Aye.
Jake,
Yes.
Sophia,
Aye.
Renee,
Aye.
Anne,
Aye.
Chad,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
Kelsey. Aye. Motion carries.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Anne, I think you're up next.
Yeah, so I was just saying to Paige, I should create a beautiful presentation for you all for next time. It's never occurred to me, but I love how much we went in that direction. Can everyone see me? I feel like would it be helpful if I went this way? You guys don't need to see me. Can you? So most of what the regional arts partners have been working on has been covered already, as we've talked about the arts project support and arts organization support programs. We're neck deep in the granting cycle. I've been getting texts while I've been here about yesterday's deadline, but the most exciting thing, my last FY23 applicant without a UEI just texted me a picture of her UEI. I'm very excited. And that highlights just the fact that when we talk about these small, rural, all volunteer run organizations, when the IAC has been looking at how to remove barriers to applying and reporting requirements and things like that, some of these things are real, and we as regional arts partners are very involved in helping them navigate the process. So, and I love her to death, and I would not have gotten to spend every day on the phone with her for the last 8 months if it weren't for this challenge. So that's not a bad thing. Anecdotally, so we've seen, you all saw some of the data that Eric presented about the number of grants and where they're coming from. I've certainly seen that in Region 10. We have more applicants this year than we've had in the past. I have a ton of new applicants, which is very exciting. I think Maya's work, getting out into all the counties and having conversations is a big part of that. I do think that reaching out at the arts partners, reaching out to CBDs and libraries, like I mentioned, I forgot to mention chambers. So many chambers have regional footprints, and in Evansville, we have the Regional Economic Partnership, and they have a similar footprint to what ours is. And so asking those folks to spread our message. Ruth Ann asked a great question. Who's the list of who you're not working with? And it's like, well, we don't know the list of who we're not working with because we don't know who they are. These people who are not already self-selecting to be involved with arts work are in many ways self-selecting to be involved with other places. So that's been great. An interesting thing this year, in the past, I've had more questions about community engagement and idea work. This year, a lot of it has been about this accessibility question. So when Stephanie says she's been on the phone with 500 applicants, I think that's probably true. To me, what that demonstrates is that things that have been put in place, all of the information on community engagement and idea work that the IAC has made available to our applicants over the last couple of years. And if you go through our grant, I mean, like every other thing is a hyperlink, more information on, and I think people are starting to get that. It's work that's never done, but I think that I'm seeing progress with our applicants in that direction. So the next thing obviously is accessibility, and hopefully we're walking with them in that towards those goals as well. One thing that I think is great, and that I think about every year when we're going through the granting process, is that the changes that came to the way that we facilitate these funds and the way that we work with our applicants during COVID that have stuck around are so helpful for the applicants. So the frequency with which we're meeting, the fact that so many of the trainings and webinars and things like that are statewide, that we're collaborating on as regional arts partners rather than trying to manage region by region. One, helps us as RAPs, and two, really ensures that the information that applicants are receiving is consistent regardless of where they are in the state. So, you know, I love how much we're able to use Zoom and other technologies to be sure that everyone's getting the same information in the same way as well. I think that's all I've got. As I listen to, you know, exciting programs that Stephanie's bringing, facilitating the AOS and APS funding processes is only part of what we try to do for the commission. So we are promoting these programs. We're thinking about who, you know, who our connections are that would be great applicants, organizations that would really benefit from lifelong arts, from arts education training, educator training. I think that's it. Next time I'll make a PowerPoint. I know, but it's, I'm gonna stand on stage. I think it's funny that, and this is on behalf of my colleagues, how much we value the fact that you invite us into these meetings to report to you about what we are seeing boots on the ground. The structure of the Arts Commission, the way that we're trying to make sure that everybody's voices are heard, that everybody's experience and expertise and wisdom is coming into the room for you all to make your decisions is really great. So thank you.
Thank you, Anne. And we really appreciate all the work with the regional arts partners, because there's no way that we can be at work without you. So definitely appreciate that. John, you were up next.
Thank you all for inviting me to be here today. I think I've probably been before you all more in the past year than I had in probably the decade leading up to it. So I really value the time that I have here, and I'm gonna try to make sure that I don't abuse it. Again, I'm John Kay. I'm the Director of Traditional Arts Indiana. It's a statewide partnership between the Indiana Arts Commission and Indiana University, where I'm also a professor of folklore. And this partnership has existed for since 1998, so 25 years now, and it's really been a real success for both the university and I hope for the Arts Commission as well. Our program has several kind of sub-projects that we do. We have an ongoing partnership with the Indiana State Fair, where we do the State Fair Masters program. We have a traveling exhibit program that serves 40 libraries around the state, where we tour traveling exhibits for free to those communities, seen by about 350,000 people a year. We have a state fellowship, which is very similar to like a Governor's Arts Award, but it honors folk artists in the state. But I think the lifeblood of the programs that we do is really our apprenticeship program. And this marks our 5th year of doing the Master Artist Apprenticeship Program. I've given, at each time I've come to meet with you all, I've given out lots of printed materials and the like. And so most of you all have already received our apprenticeship booklets in previous years. So what I wanted to do a little bit today is just talk about this year's cohort. this year's people who are in the program, tell you a little bit about the apprenticeship program, why we do it, because it might seem a little unusual to you all. It's actually a kind of an established program that folk arts programs do all over the United States and beyond. So I'll spend a little bit of time talking about that and just telling you about who we funded this year and what that means and what that looks like. So if I can do that for you real quickly. Apprenticeship programs work with communities to identify tradition bearers to make sure that essential cultural knowledge passes from one generation to the next. From a 50,000 foot view, it's like, why are they focusing on like this one person to teach this other person? But that is the way that we ensure that important cultural knowledge actually transmits to the next generation. And we also are able to lift up and celebrate communities through doing this. In a lot of ways, I see it as us being able to seed cultural traditions for the future through doing this work. And so we're able to do some wonderful programs. In the first 5 years of doing this, we've worked with hoop net makers down along the Wabash River. We've worked with Ballet Folklorico up in East Chicago. We've worked with glass artists down in Gordon, Indiana. We've worked with Zapotec weavers here or over in Indianapolis. We've worked with tradition bearers really across the state. And so we've really tried to focus on ways that we can not just help individual artists through this, but ways in which those individual artists are representatives of greater communities and greater traditional practices, and how we can support them so we can ensure the continuation of these traditional practices. So this year's cohort, I'll just kind of go through it with you and I'll kind of observe a few things, and then I'll tell you about something I mentioned to you all last time. So the master artists that we have, I'll talk specifically about them. Sam Bartlett, who does old time and music and contra dance music, is teaching mandolin in this program. This is the second time Sam has been involved in this program. Tony Dickerson, African-American quilt maker from Indianapolis, who's new to our program. We actually identified her and several other quilters in the greater Indianapolis area through a folk art life survey that we did this last summer. Emily Guerrero, who does ofrenda making in Fort Wayne. She was selected this year. She's also been a part of the Lifelong Arts program. So that was great. Natalie Kravchuk, Ukrainian Kazanki maker. The review team that selected her for this really felt like this was set an important message that we wanted to reach out to Ukrainians in diaspora living here in Indianapolis. And she does Kazanki, which is Ukrainian egg decorating. It's a wax resist, really fine art form. And she's also a great speaker of those about that tradition and its history. I should say, ofrenda, I didn't have, some of you all may not be familiar with that. That's the Day of the Dead altar making. And so she's teaching that, as well as all of the art making practices that go into the creation of that. And Tony Dickerson, the quilter, she's specifically looking on figural quilting, storytelling through quilt making, through the quilts that she's doing, and teaching her apprentice, Verna Moore. One of the apprenticeships I'm really excited about is Denzel McKim from down in Lanesville, Indiana. And he does wooden chain and puzzle carving, not chainsaw carving, like some people would think of. This is carving like wooden chains and little balls and boxes and anchors and things like that. This was once an incredibly common practice across southern Indiana. And now in recent years, I've seen very, very few, in like the last 20 years, I've seen just a handful of men, almost exclusively men, that do this type of tradition. So we were really excited that Denzel McKim was picking this up, and he's teaching Rebecca Carroll in his community. So I think that that's really important a longstanding tradition here in Indiana that's continuing. Another longstanding tradition is Joe Rice from Elwood, the St. Clair family of glass. Joe's represents the fourth generation of glass built, came from the gas boom of the 1880s and 90s here in Indiana. Glass workers that came out of the kind of occupational traditions. Joe is the grandson of Pop St. Clair, who started that tradition. While Joe has taught his children and grandchildren, there's no one to take on the family business at this point. And so there's someone, Matt Kenyon, who's a glass artist and a teaching artist, you know, Matt? And so really wonderful how bringing these two, someone coming from an MFA background and someone coming from this family tradition, bringing those two together, and they're both getting a lot out of this. I was just talking to them both this last week. Really important. Peggy Taylor, who does very traditional Anglo style weaving, is teaching Taylor Burden. Peggy has also been in the Lifelong Arts Initiative, and she's down in New Harmony. And from this partnership of the apprenticeship program, they've actually kind of fueled lots of other weavers that are really interested in this. And they're starting a Southwestern Indiana Weavers Guild from this. So that's one of the other things that we're able to do through these programs, that kind of shoot some energy into community-based traditions and bring other people into this. I point out like the apprentices, but often these apprentices end up picking up even more apprentices and other people that kind of join on into it as the year goes on. Janie Wyatt is a member of the Sisters of the Cloth. I've worked with Janie over the several years. She went with me to the Smithsonian back in 2011, I believe it was, for the Smithsonian Folklife Festival. And she's teaching Dee Chambers African-American piecework quilt making, which is wonderful. And so that's Fort Wayne. Some overarching trends in the work that I see here. A lot more craft and art, visual art related things than I would think of. In the past, we've had more music and dance. And so I think it was just the year that we had in doing this. We had 18 applications. We were only able to do 8 through the general pool. But that's actually up to, I actually kind of re-budgeted some of our stuff so that we were able to fund more this year because it was such a great cohort of people. If we had more money, we probably could have funded even more of the applications. Some of the other trends that I see there are 2 from Bloomington, 2 from Indianapolis, 2 from Fort Wayne. So definitely we've made some inroads into some of these communities, but I think that also means we need to really try to work harder at trying to work in other communities around the state. We have reached a certain demographic equity that I'm striving for, but we're hoping to do even more as we're able to get larger numbers there as well. One of the things I mentioned last year is because we had some funding from some other sources that opened up a possibility for us. I kept looking at this program and recognizing that I would invite people to apply for the apprenticeship program. And over again, I could get some people to apply, but then other communities, it was just too much of a lift for them to do that because of language, because of technology and that sort of thing. And so I recognized that as the director of Traditional Arts Indiana, who's kind of plotting a future direction for this, and we're working with specific communities, that it makes a strategic reason for us to reach out to certain communities and find out who are the traditional artists there and how can we best serve them. And so one of the strategic partnerships that I decided to fund through our other funds is a weaving tradition with the Chin community in the Southport, Indianapolis area. Pian Ki is a master weaver. She was recognized in Chin State, Burma, Myanmar, for her craft there. She's in her 70s. We funded for her to work with Anna Biak, who owns a design company already, who specializes in Chin textiles. So it was a really kind of a wonderful partnership of bringing these two together. traditionally, the way apprenticeship works is someone works out to where they meet once a week or 2 or 3 times a month. Tianqi moved into Anna's house and has basically been there 3 or 4 days a week, weaving 4 or 5 hours a day. And so it's really been powerful. It's another one of those cases where it's been infectious. Anna is learning from her, but also there's 2 or 3 other Chin women who are coming in to learn from this master artist as well. And if you think about it, this is $4,000 to a master artist to teach someone, up to $1,000 for the apprentice to have materials to do this work. I don't know where else we can get for $4,000 or $5,000 this type of moving, important culture work going on in a community. Working at IU, I mean, that might be a coffee and donut budget for a program for a semester or 2. So those are some of the programs that we have done and we've funded this last year through this work. I hope that we're able to continue and expand this work in 2 very fundamental ways. One is I want to make sure we're reaching more communities around the state, both rural and underserved. And I think that's going to take us both being very specific and also very inclusive in the way that we do this. But I think also I want to see us try to fund them with more resources, more money, and do more work with them. I think that as I said, the $4,000 or $5,000 that we end up funding to a community or to a tradition is not enough. In some states like New Jersey, I think they fund $10,000 for an apprenticeship each year. I don't think we're going to be able to get up to there. But if we think about what's actually happening, that we could open up more resources to make this happen more thoroughly, and maybe even open it up to make it not just a 1-year apprenticeship, but a 2-year time window, so it deepens it in some situations. What questions do you have for me about this program or anything else that Traditional Arts Indiana does?
Well, can we ever go back and do retrospectives of the apprentice work? They move on from this?
One of the things that we do throughout the apprenticeship program the year is we do a thorough documentation. We do site visits. We bring in professional photographers to photograph. I do exit interviews with them as well. So we end up with really good documentation during that time. We are just now at our 5th year of doing this program. I think a retrospective would be really good. When someone goes through this program, they really become part of the TAI team. And so often they end up being part of our traveling exhibit program. Usually the next year, they're a candidate perhaps for one of our heritage fellowships. They get featured in a lot of other programs that way. And so while we haven't formally done that, I think it's a great idea for us to do more follow-up on this. But we also, I think that would be great. Any other questions? I know I've talked long.
No, you're good.
Could you speak to the exhibit that you may mention of that travels to library?
Yeah, it's there's single panel. I can talk about two things that we're doing with those. There's single panel exhibits that are banner stands that roll out of a base and they tell the story of the apprenticeship on them. We create 6 new ones of those generally every single year. And those go into what are called a rotation. The rotation is there are clusters of 5 libraries, and they'll get these exhibits for 2 months. It's all facilitated through interlibrary loan. So we send it out through interlibrary loan, and libraries get them. And then we work with libraries to actually bring those artists in to do programs. So this next month, Jim Smoke, who's been a master artist in the apprenticeship program twice already, is actually going to be down at the Salem Public Library, one of those counties that didn't get funding, Washington County. He's going to be there. We've got another artist who's going to be up in Brown County, doing the Ukrainian egg decorating from this year's apprenticeship program. So we do programs with our master artists in alignment with it as well.
Thank you.
What other questions do you have?
So I want to just take a second and tie a couple threads together, and that's to bring in our national partner, the National Endowment for the Arts, and the way that the National Endowment for the Arts supports Stephanie Haynes's work in accessibility. They are in fact the large part of the driver of the partnership between the Indiana Arts Commission and TAI. John's work and the partnership funds from the National Endowment for the Arts that are specifically targeted toward folk and traditional arts form the basis of our support for John's work and our partnership with TAI. I would say that I think, and John and I were talking about this at dinner last night, that we're beginning to see more interest in the National Endowment related to folk and traditional arts. And so we anticipate that could translate into additional funding opportunities via them for TAI's work. But just wanted to make sure that folks got that connection related to, obviously it's important to support folk and traditional arts. But the National Endowment was a big instigator and a driver of that. We are somewhat unique in how we do this work in Indiana. Some states have folk and traditional arts folks on staff. We are very fortunate that we have TAI and Indiana University, Bloomington, John's specific expertise that allows us to do this at a level that a lot of other state arts agencies aren't able to do as it relates.
And the reason that there's that partnership is Indiana University has an internationally recognized folklore program, academic program there. So we end up with graduate students that come in. I've placed about, I think it's 8 or 9 grad students now are state, but my former students are state folklorists now in other states. And so it's really been a great partnership for us to be able to do that. Related also to the National Endowment for the Arts, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't point out Traditional Arts Indiana just received a National Endowment for the Arts independent grant for $45,000, which is the largest we've ever received from the National Endowment for the Arts. Also, the largest amount that anyone in the state has received during this grant cycle this year. And that is to do folk arts related work around creative aging in the greater Indianapolis area, specifically working with the Chin community, hence the weaving apprenticeship program that we were able to do. So thank you all for your interest and your support. And if you know traditional artists, traditional communities, groups that need to be recognized and supported through this type of work, please let me know. We want to reach as many people as we can around the state. And it only takes us kind of working with people, holding their hands with this application process to try to get them in. We're willing to do whatever we can to make that happen.
How are we defining tradition?
What?
How are we defining traditional? Is there an age? Is there a period?
I talk about traditional in a very expansive sense. Some people are much more conservative about their things. Traditional we talk about folk and traditional arts. When I say folk, what I'm saying is there's a community or group behind that. When I say traditional, it is something where there's been traditional knowledge that has passed from one generation to the next. So when I'm looking at things, each one of these things I talked about, there's a social aspect to it, and there's a time depth aspect to it. So it's not just because somebody does something that's old timey or it's from the past. It's something that's relevant today within a community, and it has a trajectory. It's a practice that is going. So whether we're talking about quilt making in an African-American community has strong, distinctive reasons why there's quilt making that's going on there. Farinda making, yeah, there's a time depth, but there's also this social network that's around it. The glass working, I recounted the history there of it, but also if you talk about Elwood, there's a whole tradition of glass and occupational traditions of working glass in that place. So think time depth, but also think there's this social network that kind of brings a community around it.
So I'm going back to, what was the young lady's name?
Tisha?
Yeah,
Keisha,
I'm thinking about Tisha's example of like DJing.
I could totally
Is
get
that
it.
intergenerational?
Definitely.
People aren't using vinyl anymore, so is that flipped into traditional?
I mean, our folklore and ethnomusicology program teaches classes on hip hop.
Yeah,
It's something that's very much. I would pull back from the kind of popular, the big popular media of it. But when we look at kind of very much the vernacular local traditions of doing these things, I'm totally down with the idea of someone dropping beats or someone doing rap within as a form of traditional art. I totally would be behind mural artists, graffiti artists as being a traditional art form. There's probably a difference between tagging something and actually then doing true graffiti artwork in a setting. So I could see making lowriders.
There you go.
Totally down with lowriders, pinstriping, all of those types of things could be, in my book, considered a folk or traditional arts. Social, but also passing through time. So, like I said, I'm a big expansive understanding. It just have to be. If you can't tell me about the group that it belongs to and your relationship to that group, it's probably not a folk or traditional art. But if you can talk about a community and you can talk about its history and pedigree and that sort of thing, then we're talking about a folk and traditional art. When we talk about fine arts, someone's often talking about the kind of intellectual, their individuality often gets foregrounded. When we talk about the folk arts, it's the social and community that often gets foregrounded in the folk and traditional arts. So anyway, I can geek out on all of this. So, thank you all very much.
Okay, moving on then to old business and new business. Andre has a presentation for us on the commission show portal and the grant stash.
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm gonna take over the screen real quick. So it's been a project with Stephanie Fetler and I to create and present to you it's the prototype of what's going to be the commissioner's dashboard, commissioner's portal. We want to create a one-stop for you all to have access to all the documents, video recordings, minutes, documents, materials for each of the committee. That you have a one-shot for all that information as opposed to be searching in your email inboxes every time you meet together. Just have everything in one place. So things to help out with that, each of the committees will have its own page along with this information, agenda, recordings of the meetings, and then upcoming committee meetings as well. For those who are new, I want to provide also the opportunity to get along familiar with each other, understand what's the membership and what regions and what areas are you representing. Real quick, because I'm having troubles with Zoom getting out of the way. Anyways, also providing a quick overview as well of the events that are coming. So you have a full calendar of everything that's coming up, full ahead up to 2024. And then also, last but not least, providing you access also to our grants finance dashboards, which I'm moving a little bit more on this. This dashboard, I presented to you a pre-release version in December. We are close to finalizing this project right now. I want to make sure that I also get consultation of staff and the reps to understand what other materials they would like to see, what other data sources, what other information will be relevant to their day-to-day operations. So when I work in consultation with them and having that information out, but we're able to see, right, how much counties are being funded in a fiscal year. Sorry, that's just going a little bit slow. But we're also able to see the difference between the programs and the difference throughout at least the past 7 years. And providing that information out. I'm also able to, and big thing in no small measure, to our Butler intern who was able to get this information out because we just went a redistricting process, right? So we had to go and get all the new boundaries and all the new maps. So understanding that information and understanding that we are able now to pool, right? I'm gonna pull as example, my state senator, Andrea Hunley in Senate District 46. I'm able to pull that information, understand historically what's been the amount and wards through their programs and everything that's been funded in that specific district. So definitely it's still a work in progress, but I want to make sure to give that input for you all, both on the dashboard and both on the commissioner's portal. I'm opening the invitation for commissioners to meet one-on-one, to walk through the process, to show you how to work the system, but also understanding what else you want to see. what other resources are gonna be useful for you all, and making sure that this works for you and to make your life a little bit easier.
So we'll be fully implementing the commissioner's portal for the June quarterly business meeting. So you'll have a lovely email from Stephanie Findler with just a link
Yeah.
to the portal. You do need to log in and create a password.
So I'll be walking you through that process.
We'll give a nice long runway for June. And Andre's available for one-on-one technical assistance training.
Hypercare.
But once you've created a login and password, you're on and you bookmark it, everything you need will be there. So that we no longer be seeing a long list of 1,000-page PDFs and things like that in the future. So huge shout out to Andre, Stephanie, and everyone who's helped put this together. It's exciting. And then of course the dashboard, which we're still tweaking a little bit, but that will go live on our website in the next couple of weeks. So any questions about the portal versus the dash? This is the dashboard. What you have, the commission will have is their own portal into our work. Any questions about that? If you don't like your profile picture, let Andre know for you. But
Look great.
it's been a long time coming and much needed. So yeah, we appreciate all the work by Andre to bring. So.
And I have a question from Commissioner Ruth Ann. So she asked about the colors in the dashboard. Again, darker blue means more of the funding in that area, lighter green means less. And we're trying to work out a system to provide that more easily. It's just we're working with the limited resources that we have available right now. Sorry.
For the portal, should we as commissioners start bringing devices? Is there a movement to get away from printed materials? And would it be helpful if we brought our own iPad or laptop for those who use those, or?
Not necessarily, but yeah, both will still be available on your preference.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll still have print materials as well.
But Jay, great question. I mean, I think whichever you're comfortable with. We do have some commissioners and who prefer paper and who always have that available. So, but if you prefer to bring your laptop, then that's also great.
I like to see what color coding on all the maps is for.
Yes. So as I mentioned, for the color coding, again, the darker blue is going to signify the bigger number. So right here, you see Marion County, 226 unique grantees over the past 7 years. And then if we see on other counties, the lower the number, the lighter the green color shading is going to be. But again, trying to work out with the limitations. We're new to working with the resources that we have available and circumventing the processing sometimes of understanding how can we make this data talk to the map, et cetera. So we're figuring out our way, and this is not going to be static that we're releasing this. This is something that's going to keep evolving as we have more resources and more information and data available.
Gotcha. You just can't rely on me to remember. I mean, maybe other commissioners don't have a problem with that, but I don't always remember.
You're not alone.
Like I want to put a legend here, but the legend for some reason, it gives me uneven numbers, point something. And I'm like, that's not true. We don't have point something grantees. That doesn't make sense, but I'm trying to figure out that data situation. Any other questions?
I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be a great asset for all of us. So appreciate all the hard work.
Worked so hard on getting this together. It's been incredible.
And again, a big thank you to our Butler intern, Alexander Owen, Alexander Bullock, sorry, who has been helping me because again, we had to go organization by organization and check their addresses on the new legislation map and update every single one of them. So it's been tedious, but again, now we can go and when we're meeting with legislators, we're able to pull the right district with the right information, provide them up to 7 years of data.
Well, great work. I know we've been talking about this a long time. And, you know, we've seen a few previews before, so it's exciting to have it. And thank you, Andre, but thanks to all the IAC staff. You guys continue to amaze me with all the work that you do. And and I should say not only all the work that you do, but it's always outstanding, and always forward thinking, partnerships. I love it. So anyway, thanks.
I think they deserve it.
Okay, and then, also, I am happy to present the new slate of officers for upcoming FY 2023-24. Ann Valentine has agreed to be our chair. Well, next month, yeah, don't scare her off. Dave Weiss just agreed to be our vice chair. And Brenda has agreed to be our secretary. We have a great slate, and appreciate that. Thank you for being willing to serve. So, does anyone else have any order of new business before we adjourn? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Do we have to do roll call? We just say all in favor, say.
All in favor.
Bye.
Maybe.
Aye.